Hey guys, what's up? So, with the ongoing situation being as it is, and people unable to really go anywhere, I don't know about you guys, but the UK has recently admitted to a situation where they're going to be extending lockdown until I think it is the 7th of May, and then they're supposed to be reviewing it from then. So, I've been creating these kind of daily quizzes, and some of them are mostly anime based. Most of them I have some knowledge of. I've chosen ones that I've watched and have been a fan of, especially something such as Medabots. I've loved this series when I watched it back in 2002 and 2003. At that stage, I was kind of just beginning secondary school, so it's something I used to relax to as I came back from school. Okay, so the first question is which meta fighter did Red Run end up with? This Most of the questions I'm doing for this one are going to be based on the kilobot season, which is the final season. I think this was like 2004 when this was released, and it's one I'm not as aware of, but I enjoyed that series because it provided a bit of a different perspective. And the answer is Banjo. He is a rogue meta fighter who is also a fan of video games. When going into rogue battle, he always uses the devil type kilobot Red Run. Banjo sees himself as the self-proclaimed arcade king of the city, and his talents aren't limited to just simple games. He plays to win at anything he tries, and is seemingly the only other meta fighter besides Cam that has any control over Red Run. He is the most powerful of Cam's rogue metafighters, and unlike the others that follow Cam for help and free kilobots and medabots, he does it because rogue battling is a challenge. His first appearance was when Cam planned to smear Iggy's reputation as a metafighter by beating up Metapi ruthlessly. However, Banjo was defeated with a combined Metaforce blast between Rox and Metapi. Red Run is considered one of the most powerful of the kilobots Cam ever produced. You also have Griffin, which was also a devil type medabot, which was Cam's final creation, and you also have Black Beetle, which was meant to be able to harness the Metaforce by instilling, in that respect, some sort of emotions within the within the rare metal that Black Beetle had. In doing that, even though Black Beetle is considered a kilobot, it's technically on the class as a medabot because it retains those emotions. Red Run has been used in a number of other occasions. It was used by Ginkai as well, but he saw his medabots, I think it was either Unitrix or Exor that he was using, being destroyed. And then that's when Ginkai chose not to follow Cam anymore. Banjo is a bit of a person for hire, and therefore he kind of will work with Cam, but on his own kind of set of rules, not so much what Cam immediately demands of the other members. Anyone else who tends to use some of the medabots that Cam provides are often supplied with them just randomly by box. They're just shipped by his company, who just sends them off to have them as like just to beta test them. They're just to see how powerful they are and whether they're actually effective at all. In most cases, they aren't, and are actually taken down quite easily by Metapi and some of the other medabots. However, in many of these occasions, they do have to adapt certain new meta parts in order to combat that specific kilobot. So, question 2 is, what is the kilobot version of Similodon? There were a couple of medabots that were just made as alternative kilobot versions for original medabots. You see this with War Bandit, you see this with Similodon, also with Metabee. You've got Arc Beetle has a new version as well, and obviously Rakusho has an updated version of itself, even though some of them aren't kilobots. Some of the medabots were upgraded to different versions. The only exception to that, I think, was Metabee, because it wasn't like completely changed. Some of his medals were changed, but his personality, his rare metal, what makes him who he is, wasn't changed in any way. And the answer is Exor. It is an STG type medabot that appeared in the 3rd season. It's similar to the KLN type medabot Unitrix, as well as the upgraded version of Similodon. His specialty relies on setting shock traps and grappling using his hammer and sword. Unlike his predecessor, Exor can perform a meta change, allowing him to move effectively in rough terrains. Regardless, he won't get any new attacks. He did go into a different form just to be able to kind of deal with different situations. He basically goes on all fours, and he's able to kind of wheel himself speed across different environments. His right arm is typically called the Sin Sword, which is able to cut through other medabots and kilobots, and it has the agility to kind of slice through them very easily. His legs are referred to as Keen Edge, and his left arm is the Solid Hammer. He was seen along with Unitrix as being one of Cam's favourite medabots, kilobots, and was seen causing riots in the city. However, despite Exor's loyalty, being a kilobot, Cam allows him to be destroyed by Red Run in the episode called Once a Metafighter Part 2. Exor was also given to the mystery metafighter on the condition that he used him to attack and destroy Metabee. He said, if you just succeed in doing that, I will give you him. This is where he had a bit of an issue with Rox at the time for not being considered as loyal. As a result, Zuru, who is a mystery metafighter, realizes what he has done as a bit of a mistake, and then kind of gives Exor back. Okay, so question 3 is, what was the most powerful kilobot invented by Cam? This was one kind of hidden and kept to the final bit of the series. They did manage to break into Cam's lab, and they found kind of like the designs to try and attempted to try and stop this kilobot. In the process, actually, Cam gets injured and realizes that the kilobots he is making are too powerful and out of control. Finally, deciding to make friends with the other medafighters. And the answer is Griffin. It's the most powerful version of the Devil Medabots. It's considered to have a vile and cruel personality. In general, his appearance is that he has a very large head, but his body is relatively small, and his arms resemble large cannons. His unbalanced design gives him an appearance similar to that of an alien, and his head is seen to be resembling a little bit like the final boss of one of the series, which was the Babid Blue. He has the Demolish head. His right arm is a drone, left arm is called Ruin, and the legs are referred to as Source. Griffin can disable the Metaforce with his head part called Demolish, though this effect can expire as time passes. With his right arm part drone, he can inflict behavior induction, which forces the afflicted medabot to use the same part as the medabot that inflicted it, regardless of the part's condition. However, the action will still fail if the part is broken or out of use. Griffin's left arm part ruin directly hits the opponent with a static, leaving the targeted part with a quarter of its current health if it lands. Griffin is also able to meta change into a hover type. In this form, each of his moves focuses on making his enemy suffer. His drive A has Assassin, a direct attack that always hits, a destroy attack on his drive B, and a time attack on his drive C, a shooting attack that gets stronger as time passes. Griffin first appears in Winner Takes All, where Zuru's father, Dr. Meizu, introduced him as their strongest kilobot yet. Cam quickly became impressed after watching him defeat 2 Unitrixes and even a Red Run with little effort, and asked if he could borrow him. Though suspicious, Dr. Meizu allowed it, but not before warning Cam that since Griffin is still just a prototype, he would break if he attacks without his limiter. Dr. Meizu didn't realise, however, that Cam planned to use Griffin to battle Zuru. Despite fighting both Rox and Tyrell Beetle, Griffin received no damage from either of them. Defeating Tyrell Beetle with just a few shots, Cam decided to go against Dr. Meizu's instructions and removed the limiter. True to what Dr. Meizu claimed, after the attack missed, Rox, the unfinished kilobot, was unable to handle the energy and collapsed. Dr. Meizu then decides to confiscate Griffin, telling Cam he no longer intended to finish him. Unfortunately, Cam somehow managed to retrieve Griffin and decided to insert Black Beetle's medal due to its power. However, Black Beetle couldn't handle the high amount of input she felt in Griffin's powerful system and went on a rampage. Despite her protests, Cam remained firm and decided to try again. After Black Beetle ran away to Iki, Cam puts Griffin on remote and has him attack Metapi and Art Dash until Black Beetle decided to return. Griffin appeared for the last time during the final battle against Cam, where he challenged Iki, Ginkai, and Zuru, deciding he would spare Black Beetle's body if they won. Cam once again inserted her metal into Griffin and blocked out her emotions for good measure, though she quickly overpowered Metapi, Rox, and Arkdash. Black Beetle wasn't able to handle Griffin's input and once again started rampaging. In the fire caused by Griffin going rampant, Griffin saved Cam along with the other medabots' help. Okay, so question 4 is, what is the kilobot version of War Bandit? Like I said before, some of the medabots ended up having kilobot versions made of them. These were taken from some of the more powerful designs used throughout the series, and some of the more recognisable, as a way of just continuing the link between the original series and the final series. The answer is Unitrix. It's based on both a lion and African-like designs. This is mainly reflected on the extensions on its head and shoulders, where he lacks the mane-like piece his predecessor War Bandit has. Unitrix is a medabot mainly based in shooting attacks, and his head part, the Reinforce, allows him to increase both his and his allies' speed. This is a little bit similar to how War Bandit was able to use his techniques to boost their speed without moving. Unlike War Bandit, however, Unitrix can also perform the meta change. His meta change design looks like an actual lion standing on his forelegs with a tail at his back, and with his cannons moved to the sides of his head. While Unitrix does not acquire new abilities in this form, he gets wheels on his paws, allowing him to move like a car. This gives him the advantage in cities and stadiums. In the anime, Unitrix is a kilobot used by both Ginkai and Cam. Together with Exor, Unitrix was used to cause riots in the city, and both kilobots were among Cam's favourites. In Once a Meta Fighter Part 1, Unitrix is used by Ginkai in a tournament and is about to fight Icky's Metabee before Cam interrupts, attacking Metabee with Red Run. In the following episode, in order to save Metabee's metal, Ginkai makes Unitrix fight Red Run. As though he's taken this decision, Red Run ended up damaging Unitrix so badly that he couldn't be repaired. Cam made Ginkai suffer for it. Cam then, in a following episode, has two Unitrix fight against the new kilobot Griffin in Winner Take All. Both of them are quickly defeated by Griffin's ability to expire their weapons. Later, a Unitrix army was used to test Griffin with Black Beetle's metal. After Black Beetle went on a rampage, the sole surviving Unitrix managed to take out the metal after the rest were destroyed. Question 5 is, what was the first kilobot to be shown in the series? It wasn't one that was used often. It was the first one that Ginkai was instructed to use, and like everyone else, he received it as a random delivery from Cam's company. It is not seen after its battle with Metabee. And the answer is Tank Bank. It's a kilobot that is based on a battle tank with a design based on warfare. He has his left arm, which is a Gatling gun, and his right arm fires missiles with his head part firing napalm. It appears as a kilobot built by Cam to defeat Icky and Metabee. When they refuse to battle, Cam uses Tank Bank to destroy other medabots until Icky changes his mind. The other parts of him are named for the head, the Great Barrel. The right arm is the Square Commando, the left arm is the Tri-Trooper, and the legs are the Caterpillancer. The problem with Tank Bank is very much to do with its missiles. If it runs out of any of these weapons, then that's it. He can't do anything until he can actually recharge those and replace those weapon parts, which you can't do within the middle of a row battle. The other issue is to do with his mobility. Metabee, this was the first kilobot Metabee had to face, and therefore there was a lot of issues to do with how he could avoid the overall power of Tank Bank, which he realised was beyond his level. He got some new meta parts, specifically based so he could meta change to be able to outspeed Tank Bank, to confuse him, and to wait until he had lost enough of his weapons that he could just kind of take him out. So question 6 is, which kilobot resembles Robin Hood? This was another kilobot that was used by Ginkai. However, it wasn't. It was used for one episode, and it was quite a strange episode. I think it involved Icky having to find his father because he'd left something behind before he went to work. It wasn't really much of a storyline, more of just a case of a filler episode. And the answer is Sherwood. This is a kilobot that again Ginkai used, and it's a Robin Hood based kilobot. Its specialty is this arrow attack, which launches from his right arm. It was considered quite weak, however it did manage to get Metabee into an aerial kind of situation, which Metabee doesn't specialise in, and therefore was at risk when they were fighting. Question 7 is, who was the owner of the kilobot Scalebot? This was one of the individual cronies that Cam had use of. He wasn't one of the main ones, such as Ginkai, who would kind of question what Cam was doing. He pretty much was just grateful for having the ability to test one of the kilobots, and knew if he did a good enough job that he would be rewarded for it. Therefore, he was a bit like one of Cam's mindless soldiers, just getting on with what he was ordered to do, which is what Cam likes most. He doesn't like to be questioned. He doesn't like for anyone else to kind of have their own thoughts, for them to just do as he says, especially since he argues that he's given them the tools to do the job. And the answer is Massa. His kilobot Scalebot is a GLT type medabot, which is a dark green flying type medabot with a skeleton model. His head looks like a long skull and he has glowing red eyes. His legs are a series of pipes with a ribcage-like shape that he needs to stay airborne and uses lasers to attack his opponents. The various parts are known as, for the head, it's the skull. The right arm is the head strike, left arm is the bite cut, and the legs are called weather beaten. Scalebot is a kilobot that's Massa has a control of over 10 of them, and use them to perform coordinated formation attacks. Samantha and her Peppercat were rewarded with a Scalebot leg part from Massa when she double-crossed Icky. Unfortunately, Peppercat was unable to control the power of Scalebot's flying legs and crashed when she tried to use them. The purpose of using Massa as part of Cam's employment was to show the inferiority of medabots to kilobots by defeating as many as he could with his armada, but he met his defeat at the hands of Rox and the mystery Metafighter. The next time he appeared was when he and his Scalebots ganged up on Metapi when Icky wasn't around, but they were defeated by Ginkai and Arkdash, despite cheating by trying to dump paint on Arkdash so he couldn't see. Question 8 is, what was the name of the medabot used to bully Coach Mountain and destroy his dreams? This is one of the only questions I've featured, which is from the original series, and it was quite early on in the series. And the answer is Megaphant. He resembles an elephant. His head has a heavy iron ball on his trunk, which is used to smash his opponents. His recent appearances also had large ears. Megaphant's arms, the right guard and left guard, are used mainly to defend his allies against enemy attacks. And each shield has a face on it that resembles a tribal mask. Megaphant's legs are tank treads with elephant-like paws on the front. The purpose of this is to work most effectively on kind of more rural environments, such as sand dunes, which make it easier for him to move around in these rough environments. Although saying that, Metapi was able to get behind Megaphant and defeat him that way, which is the only kind of way to kind of deal with him. These were seen in 2 occasions used by 2 gangster brothers who were there trying to destroy Coach Mountain's dream. Initially, they had tried to buy up the environment. They were also seen trying to defeat the Shooting Amigo brothers, only for them to be defeated by their medabots called Sabatinas. Question 9 is, which organisation uses the Air Patera medabots? These are a series of medabots used by a group as opposed to an individual, therefore that should hopefully give you a bit of a clue. They were seen more by this group, and I don't think they were actually used individually in the series. And the answer is the Air Patera. Were used by the Select Corps. Air Patera is a flying medabot specialising in grappling attacks. With its head part, it can reveal any hiding opponents So it has sensory aspects, and with its arms it can attack like if they were swords. In most of the medabots, it is seen as a member of the select corps. Its head part is known as hidden break, its right arm is pocket sword, its left arm is micro sword, and its legs are referred to as sky legs. It appears similar in shape to military jet aircraft. They are shown in the medabot anime series with wings attached to their backs. The pocket sword and micro sword are used for different purposes. Instead of close combat, the left and right arms of the Airpatera are used to grip spherical explosives, which are then released on mass numbers from a higher altitude onto the area of a target. This tactic is referred to as the bomb attack. It appeared when Giant Emperor was wreaking havoc towards the city. The Select Corps were trying to stop it, and as an army, they use a combination of the land brachios, the attack tyrannos, and the Airpteras in order to stop the Giant Emperor. And the final question is question 10. Who is the medabot banisher used by? This particular medabot was seen quite early on. It's used for a very strange purpose, if that helps you in any way, and this is also one of the questions from the original series. And the answer is a character referred to by the Screws Gang as the boss. Banisher is based on a Japanese gang leader referred to as a bancho. It is a medabot which solely can do one thing, and that is counter-attacking. His parts aren't able to damage unless they receive damage first. The head part is called Sweat Mantle, the right arm is Sweat Cape, the left arm is Sweat Cloak, and the legs are referred to as Click Clop. In the anime, Bankaran appeared briefly as the owner, owned by a guy who was scaring the Screws, in the episode known as Baron von Banish. He wanted to challenge Ikki. Although it doesn't do anything, Metapi is able to just shoot him once in the head to quickly win the row battle. According to its vital stats, its special attack is referred to as Strong Appearance. This basically means that if you're someone who's very easily intimidated, but just by looking at it, you're not going to challenge it. You're going to think it's too big and it's going to destroy you. That kind of thought process was very much used to get the Screws Gang to follow the boss, to do whatever he wanted them to do. But it really wasn't effective on any of his opponents, who just saw this as very pathetic, and that the Screws Gang were just very idiotic in their approach to dealing with anything. They kept saying that if they couldn't win, if they couldn't show that they were strong, that the Screws Gang were likely to get a visit from the boss, and that no one wants to meet the boss because he will do things that you don't want to see what he can do. It's a very unusual concept, and I'm glad, if they were going to introduce this within the series, that it was introduced quite early on. It was more of a sideline story, and it was just more for comical effect. It wasn't seen as that serious, and imagine if it had been used later on in the series. I think it might have been seen as too much of a joke to be featured, or it might have been backlashed from some of the fans who would have seen this as just a too weird a story to kind of keep up with. So, what did you think of the quiz? Was there anything you didn't know about medabots? Is this a series I hope you would like to look into? Again, this was one of my favourite series kind of growing up. It was something I used to relax to, and it's something I'm still hopefully I've been able to find some of the episodes, if not most of them. So every so often I do kind of go back and rewatch them. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Please leave comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe.